What I did was, okay, for the anthologist, I decided I was sort of embarrassed by my beard, which was getting kind of white, and I thought, don't shy away from your beard. Really grow it out into a huge Walt Whitman kind of extrusion of self. And I got a hat and I set up a video camera and taped myself trying to explain iambic pentameter, the history of American poetry and all that. And so that was my attempt to, I guess, method acting. Not that I know anything about acting, but so I have an awful lot of footage of me gesticulating wildly in front of a video camera, and I transcribed a lot of that, and that sort of funneled into what was rewritten and fussed with and randomized and became the anthologist. In this book, I used some more of that, but I also had all of this experience, this brand new experience for me of smoking Fausto cigars. I mean, Jesus, they are so amazingly powerful. Well, The Anthologist was a book that was my attempt to kind of rip off the bandage of American poetry and really talk about rhyme and meter and explain things, but explain them in a way that would kind of fit in with a novel. So I invented this man, Paul Chowder, who is basically me, except with some changes, and wrote about his sort of day by day thoughts. How would he explain why people bother with reading poems? Why do you even, they're hard to understand. So he's got to write an introduction to an anthology of rhyming verse, even though he himself is a non-rhyming poet. So that's what happened with The Anthologist. And then I finished it, came out. Some people liked it, and I was done with the book. And then I was wanting to write another book. This past year, I was trying to write protest songs and pop songs, and I was getting into music, and suddenly Paul Chowder's voice came back to me, and I wanted to tell the story of a middle-aged guy rediscovering music and kind of seeing what can you do with this great software now. And I finally think what are novelists supposed to do? Actually come up with characters. A character illuminated by a deed is what Yeats said, And his deed is he wants to really come up with a very smoking, danceable song.
Why?
Okay. Some people say that I've written a trilogy of books about sex, and it's a very flattering idea. What I did was I wrote a book called Vox, in which two people were kind of seducing each other and playfully talking on the phone, and it was, loads of fun to write. They became storytellers to each other. They were trying to seduce and become interesting to each other, even though they couldn't see each other. Finished with that. A year and a half went by, and I thought, man, I have a lot more to say about sex. So I wrote another book called The Fermata, which was based on my own 14-year-old fantasy of sexual fantasy, which is that you could stop the whole universe and take off women's clothes. And I thought that would be so great, And why not devote a whole novel to that? So that was that, and that was back in the 92 and 94, I guess, was when those two books came out. And I was sexed out. I was done with writing about sex at that point, and wrote a bunch of other books. And somewhere in the 53 area, I thought, oh my God, what if I become an old guy and haven't written a third sex book? I have so much more to say. And I was writing all these just sort of startlingly filthy scenes, and enjoying it. And I came up with this sex resort called House of Holes, where, you could just go and whatever you wanted to do happened. And there wasn't any unhappiness or coercion There wasn't any Dungeons and Dragons. It was just people, swapping genitalia or going through strange things that I now am so embarrassed to think about. But at the time, they seemed extremely important to put on the page. And once you finish with a book like that, you think, whoa, God, I got the sexness, the verbal sexness out of me. And it's time now to get back to real life. And so that's what I did with Traveling Sprinkler.